What's up guys, Matty here. In today's video, I'm going to show you my 5 favorite plugins from 2024. Now, if you watch my channel, you'll probably notice that I review quite a few plugins, but to be honest, not all those plugins make it into my daily workflow when I'm mixing and mastering. These are 5 of the plugins that I've reviewed, except one I didn't review, so that will be a special one. But these are the ones I'm actually using day to day, and I'm going to show you how I'm using them, why I think they're a great plugin, and you know, hopefully it'll bring you guys some information that is helpful to you. Before we do get started, if you are interested in having me mix and master your song, you can check me out at mixandmastermysong.com. You can also find my courses and presets there too. Let's get into it. All right, guys, the first plugin is Neutron 5. I reviewed this a few months ago. I'll put the links to all the reviews down below, and so you can check them out. I will also put links to the actual plugins. Some of those will be affiliate links that help out the channel. Use them or don't, I don't really care. It just helps a little bit more. Now, Neutron's been around for a while. I've reviewed other versions of it. Why am I adding it to my top list of 2024? Well, for one instance, for one module in particular, is this density module. Now, this is basically kind of upwards compression. It adds density, that's why they named it that. And to me, just kind of pulls something completely together. A lot of times if you just compress something, it will just pull down the louder parts. But sometimes you want those louder parts to stay where they are, but actually pull up the lower parts. And so that's what density basically does. It's kind of upwards compression. I'm using it on this little pluck here. It might not be the best example because it is dynamic but not super dynamic, but it will at least give you the idea of what you can do with it. So let me just play this by itself and then we'll bring density on. So what you're hearing is those do, do, do. I cannot sing to save my life. Those notes were kind of getting lost a little bit, especially when this is all going in the mix. This is when you can really use this plugin. But what it's doing, it's bringing those up. You could hear the reverb tails started extending a bit. And so it's bringing those sections up so that we can hear them more clearly. And I find this plugin works really well for like crazy percussion instruments. If you have like a percussion loop and some of the sounds aren't quite cutting through the mix, you can use it for that. Works great on things like this with synths that might be a little bit more dynamic than, you know, for instance, just a kick drum or something. And I tend to use it when I'm kind of in, you know, 80% of a mix and there's one instrument that I'm just not quite hearing enough. And I'd like to hear all the nuances of it. This is the plugin to go to, and it will bring that up. So let me just play one more time on and off so you guys can hear the difference. Okay guys, the next plugin is one that I actually did not review, and that is the Michael Brauer Green Compressor plugin. And it is definitely not a transparent plugin. It's super colorful and can add tons of, you know, distortion and vibe to any signal you put it on. This has made its way onto most of my basses. I find it a great way to add some color and thickness to a bass. But it doesn't, you know, stomp on the sound or change it too much if you don't want to. It's really versatile in that way. As I said, it is a colorful compressor just by turning it on. Look at this curve EQ here. Definitely changing the sound by quite a few dB. But I like what it does to basses. It sounds really good. No matter, like, and I haven't found like, oh, I don't really like it on that bass. And I'll show you can dial back if it does change the sound too much. Let me just play this for you guys so you can hear the difference first, and then we'll go into some of the ways I use it on my mixes. So as you can tell, it definitely changes the sound, but in a good way. Like, it just got thicker, a little more, you know, heavy, and I really like what it does. Now, there's a couple ways to use this too. This is without any compression at all. And so a lot of times, if the bass is dynamic, I'll bring some compression to pull it together, and it works great as a compressor on bass. You have attack and release down here if you need to adjust it. But let's put on some, let's pull the threshold up and add some compression to it. So as you can tell, it sounds really great. I like the way the compressor works. It's not like overly like snapping it down, but it's pulling it together really well. So that's another key to why I like this plugin. Great compressor built in. Now, let's say that we like it, but it's actually changing the bass tone too much, which, you know, once we get the instruments going, we can understand maybe it's taken away from the kick or some other part of the song. So what's great about this is it has this wet dry. And a lot of times, if I find that it's just taking away too much, I'll put the wet dry to 50, and then it brings back some of the original sound, but also adds this nice thickness and glue that this compressor gives us. So let me just play that before and after for you. So as you can tell, we got a little bit of the best of both worlds with that. Other features too, if you want more warmth, for instance, you can crank that up. I haven't used that too much just because it's already adding so much color, but I might have used it once when I was really trying to change the tone of something, but it's there if you need it. And then lastly, the other part of this thing I love is the saturation. This thing can really make a bass sound gritty, but it's a great saturation on bass. I don't always find every saturation plugin sounds good on bass. This thing does, and I've thrown quite a few different kinds of basses, electric, acoustic, at it, and it's done what I've wanted it to do with that. Now, that being said, this is going to crazily change the gain. So I'm going to turn this up a bit and turn our output down and then play it for you guys. So that sounds awesome and just adds like a whole nother dimension to this bass. And this is really great for, especially when you have the whole mix going, which you always should, and I keep saying that. But if you need the bass to cut through more, a little bit of saturation will help do that. And so, you know, just doing that will do it. As you can tell, the gain does increase quite a bit. Even me turning this down 24 dB, it still was a bit louder. So you'll have to play with that. Maybe they could give us like 36 dB at some point, but this plugin is awesome on bass. My goal for 2025 is to find other ways to use this. I've used it on vocals a bit, and it's cool for certain vocals. It hasn't really stuck with me like, oh, I'm going to keep that on there. Most of the time I ended up just turning it off, but I'm so stuck on like 1176 style compressors for vocals that it's a little tough to try to change that. But I might try it on some synths and stuff like that and see what that comes up with. But for now, it is in my template on basses. All right, the next plugin is Orion by Cradle Audio and Jason Joshua. I love this plugin because I've learned a lot about mixing from Jay through Mix with Masters and becoming friends with him over the years. And so it does give you that kind of sound that he's used on his drum bus for years, which is like the Shadow Hills, Black Box Saturator, R-Bass, and then all the NLSs and so forth. And it gets pretty close to that sound of using all those plugins. So it's really cool to have that all in one. Now, I don't use it the way it is built. I'll show you how I'm using it for the most part. But let me just play you, because this thing changes the sound of your drums quite a bit. And it can sometimes work, but honestly, 90% of the time, I'm not using it with all the stuff on it. So here's what it does. Just Start Me Up's how Jay uses it, and you can hear it. So, you know, just makes the drums hit so much harder, thickens them up, sounds great. Pro tip with this thing, if you want it to level match, usually -5 is about perfect for level matching it. So if you want to, see what it's doing to your audio. Now, that being said, like I said, a lot of times this is too much for me mixing. All I do is mix, so it can change the tone of the instrument so much that it will change the vibe of the song. And so a lot of times I don't use it like that. This is my kind of startup, and it is without this section, which is representing the NLS buses. So let me play this for you, and you'll see that it's not changing the tone quite nearly as much as the other way was. It's much more subtle. Now you'll notice too, I actually turn the input down and the output up on this because I find if I push this thing too much, it gets a little too saturated for my taste. So that's another thing to notice, is that my input's way down on here too. Now, once I have this, these things can change. I will, a lot of times if I need more bass, this is like your R bass, I'll either switch it to 80 or 50 and turn it up. This is where my starting point is, because I like just a little bit of R bass on my kicks, but not a whole lot. But if I need more, it's there for me. Saturation section is up pretty much. And this, to me, over here, is where the money of this plugin is for me. Not only do you have like a Spectre EQ, saturation EQ, which a lot of times if I need some more high end, I can boost 3 or 10. If I need more low end, it's all there. It's like a nice, really quality EQ on your drum bus that you can use, and that gets used a lot for me. And then lastly, these 4 are parallel channels of different things. Sub, more low end, more loudness to your drums. If they're not cutting through, that's great. More grit, I use this a lot. It is basically just distorting the top end, and it can definitely help making the kick and snare cut through better. So let me just play this and bring these up and down so you can hear them. And a lot of times I might actually turn all these off and just put it on the kick or snare if I need certain things from these parallels. So you can use this plugin in a lot of ways. You don't have to just use it the way it is given to you. And like I said, that can change the sound. I think some people might have been turned off by that. And you got to use the best parts of plugins for your sound, the way you want things to hear. And this is an amazing plugin for drums, and I just want people to understand that. So let me play this. So really fast, you guys can demo the plugin and check it out, but you can see how many fantastic tone shaping options you have with these. If you need more low end sub or low end, you can crank this. If you need more low end, you can crank this. These can both work together or separately and can give you different tones. This is a fantastic parallel compression right here. And then the grit, one of my favorites that really help a kick and snare cut through the mix when you need it to. All right, the next plugin is, and everyone's going to have this on their list. It's the newest version of Pro Q4. Probably, in my opinion, the most useful and the most used third-party plugin in the world. I think everybody has this. And they've added some new features. And the one that, you can watch my video review on it to see all of them. But the one that I've been using the most is the Spectral Dynamics feature. And if you watch, I have quite a few videos on Pro Q. If you watched like the vocal one, you'll notice that I'll play this. Let me just mute my output really quick. I'll play this, and this isn't a vocal, but if it was, and I will go down here and wait for it to turn blue, click or turn purple, and then click on it so it turns blue, which I learned from you guys. And you'll notice it starts giving you all the peaking frequencies, and then I will just pull those down, right? And then select them all and bring the gain back. Whoop. Bring the gain back. Why didn't it select all of them? Bring the gain back, and then I will select them all and switch to dynamics mode, which I used to do, and that would help take resonance out of vocals. Now I use the spectral, and the reason I like that is it actually just takes out the frequencies you want, but you can actually widen it out now, and a lot of times you would be getting one frequency out with just the dynamics mode. That's all you could do. But there might be some where when the vocal or the bass or whatever you're using this on moves, and you'd be missing those. So now that with the spectral, it catches those more. And so you could see it moved here, and then it moved here where the main frequency we pulled down was, and a little bit here. And so it's catching more stuff, but in a great way. Pro Q4, fantastic update. Watch the video for all the information on it. But this, to me, was the key update and one that I've been using daily in my mixes since it came out. All right, so finally that brings us to the last plugin of 2004 that I've been using. And this one's a bit of a weird plugin, but it is the newly updated Console One MK3 mixing system from Softtube. Now, why do I put this on? Well, you probably can't see over my shoulder, but my Console One's over there at my mix desk. And they did so much to this update to make it useful. And the biggest one is, I have my whole system's on a laptop now, so I can go sit in my living room and do edits, or go somewhere and actually start a mix. I've been doing that a lot, like starting a mix outside is really cool. And then you bring it in, I bring it into the studio to do the final mixes and tweaks and make sure it's sounding right on the speakers. But with this now, you can use this anywhere. And when I say that is like, this is my setup. This goes on every channel on my mix. A lot of times it's just maybe used for filters or light EQ. Sometimes it's used, with the compression and everything on it. That's why I like it. It's all my tools ready to go in one plugin. I can either draw it in or, mouse it in, or use my actual Console One, which is, really quick and intuitive. But what I like about it is when you're on the run, you can just click through to all your different things you need and just use it here now. So you don't need necessarily the Console One box in order to be able to use this now. And so I can turn my low cuts up. I can go to the EQ, and this is the 4000, and just boost some top end here if I want to. And then I have my pull tech here, which is one of the other go-tos on my preset. And just boost that wider band, crank that up to 16 or 12, and there's my vocal. So much more useful than the older version now, and that's why it's on my list, because honestly, I'm using it every day. I use the Console One every day, and I can use this no matter where I am now every day and add any plugin I need. All right, guys, so that's my top 5 list of 2024. Let me know what you think are the best plugins in the comments below. Which ones have you bought and started using on a day-to-day basis? I'd love to know, and maybe I can start trying them. Like I said in the beginning, if you need your songs mixed or mastered, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com, and you can find my courses and presets there too. Talk to you guys soon.